Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Florida Chamber's Bottom Line. I'm David Hart, Executive Vice President at the Florida Chamber, and our special guest today is the Senate Appropriations Chairman, Tom Lee. Tom, welcome to the program.
Thank you, David.
It's good to have you with us. As Appropriations Chair, you're in a very pivotal role for this session. The one required duty of the legislature is to pass a budget. Looks to be about a $77 billion budget this year. And we learned a few weeks ago that you may have approximately $1 billion additional dollars in revenue over and above what would be considered the base budget. What do you see as some of the funding opportunities for that additional $1 billion this year?
Well, you're right, David. We're really fortunate here in Florida that thanks to the Chamber of Commerce and a lot of other people that are moving a pro-business agenda forward, our governor, we're growing revenues here in this state. Asset values are up, unemployment is down, and things are moving in the right direction. We have an additional $1 billion this year. And, you know, there are a lot of opportunities on how we allocate those resources, but we have some challenges in the implementation of Amendment 1. We have teaching hospitals and hospitals that do a lot of unreimbursed care that are being hit by a decision by the CMS on funding out of Washington. So we have to deal with some of those things. In the interim, we have a lot of proposals that are coming forward on tax cuts, and the governor's laid down a plan of about $650 million of tax cuts, and the legislature's combing through all those various options. Finance and Tax Committee, as you know, that'll bubble up through them. So it's still very early. We don't know what's going to happen with the gaming compact, which expires this summer. So we're still putting together the pieces of the puzzle, just how many resources we're going to have to spend and how to allocate them.
And there's also a growth in K through 12 student population, which may call for some additional needs and revenue there. You mentioned tax cuts, Chairman, and I wanted to ask you about the opportunities for tax cuts. The Florida Chamber, for the last 2 years, our members have supported a reduction in the communication services tax and also a better tax policy as it relates to sales tax on commercial leases. As you know, we're the only state that charges that particular tax. Do you see opportunity this session for those tax cuts?
Well, you know, first of all, for a little context, I mean, aren't we fortunate to be in a state where we're talking about cutting taxes in the context of a national government that's talking about raising them? And so we're really blessed to be in this posture in the state, to be having this conversation. You're absolutely right. There are proposals moving through the legislature on the communication services tax, and one related to the reducing the tax on commercial leases. As a landlord in the commercial real estate business, that one has particular affinity to me. But both of them are very broad-based. Both of them will have sweeping impacts across the spectrum of small business and individuals who pay those taxes, whether as they pass down through businesses or directly on their cell phone bills, for instance. So they're very popular in the legislature, and the question is really going to become, you know, how much money do we have to spend? So how far down that list of priorities that have been set are we going to be able to buy these tax cuts? And you know, with a week left before the session starts, a revenue estimating conference the second week of session, we're a little ways away from having some specifics about that, but you're going to see some large tax cuts coming out of the Florida legislature.
Good news for the people of Florida. You mentioned Amendment 1 implementation a few minutes ago, and as I know you're aware, the Florida Chamber and our members opposed Amendment 1 when it was before the voters. We didn't want to see the legislature's hands tied, and we felt it's the wrong way to set a budget through the Constitution in the form of a mandate. That said, the voters have spoken, and it's now your duty and your colleagues' duty to implement it. There are concerns that implementing it may impact affordable housing or transportation. What do you see there? Is there a way to implement it and somehow protect transportation and affordable housing?
There are. It's going to require an allocation of general revenue. As you point out, this passage of Amendment 1 essentially took a third of the dock stamps and allocated them to environmental programs. That money, some of that money was going somewhere else beforehand, so we have to find a way to backfill those programs in affordable housing and transportation. Both of them have a huge multiplier effect in our economy. They create jobs. So as we look through, again, going back to the revenue estimating conference and all the demands on the resources that we have, but as we look to solutions to the problems that we're facing with the low-income pool going away here in our state, trying to find a way to hold transportation and affordable housing harmless is going to be a huge priority.
Chairman Lee, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for your leadership in the Florida Senate. And to our viewers, thank you for being with us for another edition of the Florida Chamber's Bottom Line.